Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here Harpreet Singh with a daily analysis of the Hindu from 17th of December 2024. Let's begin with today's analysis. So this is a QR code where you can basically find the particular PDF on which we are writing right now along with other material that is required for your preparation. So what all topics we have taken for today's analysis? Let's have a look. First, the code of ethics for OTT over the top platforms. Naxalism resolution, how Naxalism has to be resolved, or what are the steps taken by the government of India. Then UNCCD, MFN Status, Human Rights Watch, Green Hydrogen Concept, and you have Valorem Tax. So let us have a look at all these. These are important from the perspective of your civil services examination. Let's begin. Okay. Main topics. Topic 1. The center cautions OTT platforms against glorifying drugs. And over here, we realize that the code of ethics for OTT is very categorically mentioned. So the recent problem that has been risen is that generally when movies used to be released in theaters, they used to get a certificate from the censor board. And over there, anything that used to violate, let us say, any guidelines, let us say, implicitly or explicitly show of, let us say, drugs and all, those scenes used to be cut. Now what happens is that the over-the-top platforms like Netflix, Hotstar and all, they have been unregulated. So what happens? Many things are shown on those movies which would have otherwise been restricted when you're watching the movies. So what happens? There is a code of conduct or ethics that has been released by the ministry and the government of India. Let us have a brief look what it is, because it becomes very, very important, especially from your general studies paper 4 and even from the aspect of general studies paper 2, because it is related to information technology. Let's have a look. The information technology, intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code rules 2021. Now this is IT rules 2021, which are based on the digital media ethics code. Now let us see what it is. Please make a note of it also, because it is very important. This can come in your examination. Let's have a look. See, the digital media ethics code, what are the underlying principles or the root principles for this? Let's see. Underlying principles first. Create an institutional mechanism to preserve free speech, expression, and provide level playing field. So it is aiming that, yes, all the platforms for that matter should have, or let us be preserving the concept of free speech and level playing platform for all the digital fields, or let us say digital platforms or the OTT platforms that are prevalent. Next, progressive and balanced approach, balancing with the concerns of the users. We should not be adopting an extremist approach over here that, let us say, complete nudity being shown. Over there, what happens then it is very difficult to regulate that, and along with it, then government will have to adopt certain strict measures. So you need to have a balanced approach with what the content you are showing. Not excessive of bloodshed or excessive of nudity or vulgarity. That will again lead to problematic situations. So balanced approach. Next, based on the existing statute. Existing statute, that means we have the Information Technology Act that is already there. Based on that only, these rules are being created. Fourth, utilizing the experience of the existing practices, that is domestic and international. So whatever experiences have been gathered over the time through the OTT platforms or the digital platforms, domestically as well as internationally, have been used while framing of this code of conduct or the ethics that we see over here. So these are the underlying principles over here. What now next comes? The main features of what? The digital media ethics code. See, let us have a look at the main features. First, due diligence by intermediaries. Intermediaries over here can be your Netflix, can be your Hotstar and all those platforms. Due diligence should be given to them. Along with it, they also need to take care of what content is being posted on their platforms. Next, 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism. We are going to see this. 3-tier, that means there are 3-level grievance redressal mechanism has been there or created by the government of India. Third, code of ethics for the publishers. That means for all the publishers, let us say even digital content that has been posted, so there has to be a code of ethics for what they are posting. So with respect to the publisher also, a certain code of conduct needs to be there. Fourth, Self-regulation architecture. That means mechanism should be there that they themselves should first of all self-regulate, that they should be cautious enough based on the code of ethics that is there, what to do and what not to do. Fifth, disclosure of information. Now, disclosure of information depends upon, like for example, what the content has to be, what it is. So at least whatever required requisitives are there with respect to the Information Technology Act, those guidelines and those aspects have to be covered. And because of that, certain prior information has to be disclosed so that the content that is being posted is in accordance with those rules. Earlier, what used to happen, you would be seeing that before a film used to be given a certificate from the censor board used to watch the movie rigorously, properly. Similarly, what you have to do over here is certain information has to be given with respect to the IT rules so that it can be easily published also, or let us say a movie can be released on the OTT platform also without any hindrances being there. So going accordance with the rules is what is being said, disclosure of the information. Let's move ahead. Digital media over here, see, furnishing and disclosure information. What does it mean? Publisher to furnish the basic information to the ministry. Disclosure of information in public domain regarding the grievance redressal by publisher and self-regulatory body. So basic information has to be disclosed to the ministry with respect to what is being published. If we move ahead, now comes digital media ethics, digital news publisher. Now see, with respect to the publisher also, please remember, what is there? Please understand, we will be seeing two things. When we see the digital media ethics code, in its digital news publisher, and we have the OTT platform. For both of them, what the code of ethics is saying, understand that. With respect to digital news publishers, please see, they are going to be judged, or let us say regulated by the norms of journalist conduct under Press Council Act of 1995. Right? Norms of journalist conduct under Press Council Act 1955. Then Program Code under Cable Network Television Networks Rules 1994. Along with it, they have been told prohibited content not to be transmitted via their digital news platforms. See, this creates a level playing field between the online and the offline media. What used to happen is, earlier on, the concerns were raised that the online media was, the news publishing was so free that they could put any content that they want. On the other hand, there was a lot of restrictions with respect to the, let us say, the tablets that are published, or let us say the newspapers, the physical newspapers that we see. They said those newspapers basically raise the concern that we are being over-regulated, while the news that is published over the digital platforms is not that regulated. Or via certain apps, new apps have come like InShot and all. They said they are not as regulated as the newspapers that we see are regulated. So this basically puts the digital news also on the level playing field as the offline, or what we say as the physical newspapers or the news that is there. Next, OTT platforms. What does it do? See, it has been shown that not to show prohibited content. The content that has been said to be prohibited shall not be shown, and that is regulated with what is the unauthorized or what is, let us say, restricted will be again updated repeatedly by the ministry. Age restriction to a child, age gating, parental control, age verification mechanism should be there. So as we used to have with respect to the movies also, that whether it is adult, whether it is universal, age restriction has to be there with respect to OTT also now. Display content descriptor and advisory. So sometimes what happens is, like let us say someone is smoking while the OTT, let us say series is going on. Over the proper description that tobacco consumption is bad for health, these things should be carefully taken into consideration while any serial or let us say movie is being, let us say, streamed on an online platform. Along with it, display of the classification. What classification does this particular serial or movie do belong to? We'll be seeing that also. Self-classification by OTT platform. These classifications can be done by the OTT themselves. Again, they have, this is a means of self-regulation also, that you yourself classify into which category it should fall. We'll see those classifications. Now see, what is there? See, nature of content suitable for and the classification. So this is a content classification that the they are going to do it themselves. UVC, U means universal, unrestricted access regardless of the age, and family friendly. That means anybody of any age can basically watch this particular serial or movie that is streamed on the online platform. On the other hand, this is U A plus 7. That means for a person aged 7 years and above, and can be viewed by a person under the age with parental guidance. So above 7 years, anybody can view. Under 7 years, under the parental guidance, one can see. Now comes A universal and A 13 plus. What does it mean? For a person aged 13 and above can easily see it, and can be viewed by a person under the age of 13 under parental guidance. Then U A 16 plus. For a person who is 16 years and above can himself or herself watch that movie or whatever serial that is. Under 16, one has to see with the parental guidance. A is adult, which is only restricted to the adults, not for the children. So this is a classification that has to be put with respect to every serial or let us say series that is there. So this is again. So what does it mean? The content classification based on the international practice. Next, as we had discussed about the grievance redressal mechanism. So the 3-level grievance redressal mechanism is there. 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism. See, level 1 is a grievance redressal by the publisher. That means with respect to the publisher, whatever the grievance are basically being coined out or whatever it comes will be dealt at this level. Then level 2 is self-regulation. Whatever the problems arise, again, the OTT platforms have to see that, okay, can that be resolved? If they're not resolved, then is the central government oversight. Then the central government is going to oversee that. Is there issue any still prevailing, or what intervention shall be taken under the Information Technology Act? So there's a 3-level of regulation. First at the publisher level, second at the self-regulatory level, and third at the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So this is the 3-level redressal mechanism. Redressal or grievance redressal means the problems that may arise. While any problem that may arise, let us say with respect to the classification, with respect to an objection raised by some particular person, or with respect to a content that any, let us say, pressure group creates a pressure that this content is contradictory to their cultural practices and all. In that case also, these are the grievances that come up, and how they are resolved is according to this 3-tier mechanism. Okay, let's move ahead. Now comes the digital media ethics, benefits and outcomes. Now let us see what are the benefits and outcomes from the dimension of various stakeholders with respect to for the citizens and the society. What is the benefits over here? Social benefits. See, citizen empowerment, informed choice is there, effective grievance redressal mechanism is there. So you have the information that what is the classification, you have a grievance redressal mechanism. So obviously it is citizen empowerment. Then curbing misinformation, accountability of the digital news publishers. So that means because over here the digital news has been brought at a similar platform as the other physical or the offline newspapers were. So it has raised the accountability for the digital news also. Otherwise, what used to happen, they could publish anything and they used to go unregulated, and that used to create a lot of issues of fake news. Next is protecting children. Access control and age verification is a means through which a restriction is basically imposed or a regulation is being done who should watch what content. So that means this is a proactive measure by the government. Quality content, better journalist and entertainment content would be there, obviously, because some form of regulation was necessary. And that basically raises the accountability, that basically restricts unwarranted content being published. And that is why we realize that quality content will be there. So for society and the citizens, these are the benefits. Now, what are the benefits and outcomes from media and the entertainment sector? Right? This is first. Now this is the second. For the OTT players, artistic freedom, no pre-censorship. So we do not have a pre-censorship because a means of self-regulation is there. So you yourself see what should be put and what should not be put, what are the age restrictions or not. So there is no pre-censorship as such, but let us say certain amount of basic information has to be given to the ministry, and along with it, you have to put the classifications that have been given. So there is no pre-censorship as such. Next is self-classification. So there is no delay. Otherwise, what used to happen? You used to submit your series, or let us say movie for that matter, which used to be published in the PVRs, or let us say even now, or for that matter, in their movie theaters. They used to go to the censor board, and sometimes the censor board used to delay it by months. That used to lead to a lot of delay. Over here, that is not an issue because self-certification is there. Avoiding litigation, informed decision by the content creators, along with it a 3-tier mechanism for grievance redressal, further eases out a means through which problems can be resolved. Next, sustainable growth promotes, champions audiovisual services sector also because, see, we know that OTT and the digital media platforms are again the future. They already are a future, but they're going to rise tremendously with the rise of new technologies like AI, on-demand services, machine learning and all. So we realize that there is a lot of scope with respect to the audiovisual sector also. So what happens? This will also impact the electronic sector also for that matter. So what is there? A proper regulation, a mechanism, a systematic regulation or a mechanism is there, very clear cut from the side of the government. It basically helps in a lot of hiccups being resolved, or let us say regulatory problems that might arise in various sectors that might resolve, and streamlining all the things so that the sector basically booms. So that is why this is very important for the media, the entertainment sector. Now comes, what are the benefits for the digital news publisher? Third, see, if you see again, sustainable growth, quality journalism through transparency, because there is self-regulation and there is also little regulation that is there under the IT Act also, and there is a code of ethics also that is expected from the side of the government under the IT Rules 2021. Next is freedom of press, arm's length from the government. It doesn't mean that the government is unnecessarily intervening. It is going to maintain a distance unless and until you violate certain major code of conduct. Curbing misinformation, reducing the fake news, because again, the digital news has been brought to the same platform as the offline newspapers. Level playing field, similar principles for the online and offline as we have discussed. So this is beneficial from all the aspects. So this was the code of conduct that you should be knowing. Again, becomes very important for your preliminary because it can be asked there also, and mains obviously in GS4 also and GS2 also. So please be prepared with this particular question. Next, topic 2, Naxalism resolution. See, the problem over here is that this topic has been coming repeatedly from the past few days. Why? See, the Honorable Home Minister had very categorically said that the Naxalism menace has to be resolved. And we have taken a resolution that we will curb or finish this by the end of this year. And that is why you realize that Honorable Home Minister has been visiting to various Naxal-affected regions also, and strict instructions have been given that the issue of Naxalism should be curbed as soon as possible. And that is why very proactive measures have been taken from the side of the Ministry of Home Affairs along with the state governments. Now, let us see what it is and why and how these things have done. And they have reduced over the time a lot, and how it has reduced. That is important. Now see, the term Naxal that we basically see or come across is basically originates from the Naxal Bari, a village in West Bengal, where the Naxal Bari uprising occurred in the 1967. Those engaged in insurgency is referred to as Naxals or Naxalites, and the movement is referred to as Naxalism. So again, there were certain farmers who were basically protesting against their rights, for their rights to land and all, which basically led to farmers picking up arms. When they picked up arms, they started fighting the state. Now, when you're fighting the state, you are given the status of an insurgent, and because that led to a lot of killings of even the security forces, and that movement basically spread to the various other regions across India, which we'll be seeing. And this Naxalism was basically, again, remember, created a major internal threat to the state of democracy in India. Please remember one thing, that over here, it becomes very important when you're talking with respect to Bengal region, where Naxal Bari village, from where the Naxal movement started and spread. This Naxal Bari movement is inspired by the communist ideology. That is why they are also known as Maoist, because they are basically inspired by the Mao Zedong's philosophy that even China follows in its communist movement. Now the question would be coming that, and such types of movements have been there, they are getting so much arms, ammunition. From where do they get? Please remember one thing. Over here, countries like China have played a very important role in disturbing the internal security of the country. How? It was easy for them to transport illegal weapons to the northeastern region, and through that, insurgent groups would be buying them, and they would be coming to India, and they are basically being used by these Naxalites against the security forces and the people, and especially the tribals. Over here, Pakistan has also played a very important role along with China in disturbing the internal situation of India. That is why these things should be kept in mind, and then as we study forward, these things will become more clearer to you. Now please understand, when we are saying Naxalism, the first thing we need to remember is that this was a small village, Naxalbari region, where this movement for the farmers started for their rights, and which later led to a great, or let us say a big movement, an insurgent movement fighting the government of India and the state governments, which is known as Naxalism. Objectives. Please understand, because the problem that arose is, had it been merely a farmers' protest, government could have coordinated with them. But when you want to destroy democracy in India, that is where the problem arises, because it was inspired by the communist ideology. See, the primary goal of Naxalite is to dismantle the existing democratic structure and replace it with a communist system. This is where the problem arose. If you are protesting for the rights, like you want certain land rights, you have certain issues with the government system, yes, you can protest, but not with arms. First. Second, how can you basically aim at destroying the basic structure that is a democratic framework of country? Now, that is why we realize, in stark contrast to the peaceful and non-violent methods advocated by Mahatma Gandhi, such as civil disobedience, non-cooperation, the Naxalites employ aggressive and violent tactics, including the armed rebellion, to pursue their objective to disrupt and overthrow the system. They get access to arms, even bombing of the vehicles, killing massive number of CRPF officials, even the army officials. So this is something that is not allowed. You can protest peacefully within a constitutional means, it's fine. But they wanted to replace the democratic framework with a communist ideology like that of China. And that is what creates a major problem over here. Now see, modus operandi of Naxalite. Please understand what has been their focus. See, the Naxalites often target the tribal youth surrounding areas who are typically underserved by the government and the schemes. Now please, how it has spread. See, if you analyze the Naxals again, who are their backbone support? Supporters have been China, and obviously to a great extent Pakistan has been helping. Now, when this ideology has to be spread, how easy would it be to spread it? Because these Naxals who have been given money and arms to fight, then they would come in contact with what? Contact with the tribal youth, tribals. Now, these tribals are the ones who, due to various years before the Forest Rights Act 2006 came, their lands in various cases were taken by the government for mining activities, for let us say dam building and all. So they have been also displaced and suffered, and mainly they have also suffered because of, let us say, the schemes not reaching them. And that is why, because of their condition, the Naxalites are able to brainwash them easily. And what happens? Then they also start supporting the Naxals. Why? They said, we will give you the rights, you have the land rights, land is yours, all these things come. So what happened? Slowly, which you realize, the region of the tribal affected regions are the one which basically were the regions where Naxalism also rose up. Please see here. If you see the earlier, I will be showing the change over here. This is the earlier map. If you see the red, these are the major areas where Naxalism has been very strong. This brown color is one moderate and other again marginal. You should realize this is a region where Naxal, along with it, obviously in certain areas are also, but these are the regions where Naxal impact has been there. Now, if you realize, this is also known as red corridor region. Red corridor because see, firstly, we realize a lot of mineral like iron ore is there. Second, a lot of bloodshed happening here because of the Naxal versus the tribals and government of India, that also. And third is, this is a tribal dominated region also. So this was a region where we realized that Naxalism spread like wildfire, particularly this is being the tribal regions. Now, because of the various steps that have been taken by the government of India, this has basically decreased according to the latest report. Now, if you see, it has decreased over the regions, and certain regions like red are the highly affected, the greens being marginally affected, and the brown or this ring, let us say moderately affected. Now, do you realize from this map to this map, the decrease has been tremendous. That means government of India has been working towards decreasing this insurgency, and we realize that in a few months we will be realizing major steps which have been taken will result in the Naxalism issue being resolved. Now please see how this has happened. If I see reasons for the decline, we need to see that Government of India basically followed a various step strategy. First was that you surrender. That means all those Naxalites who have been involved in either mass killings also or whatever be the case, you surrender it. You give up the arms. We will be rehabilitating you. We'll be providing you land also and work also, and you can basically carry out in your life, provided that you do not pick up arms again. Another various development approaches have been there, that regions have been developed so that the tribals who were disgruntled by the government's uh, non-development of region, that issue would be resolved. That means regional development will lead to tribal youth not being brainwashed by the Naxalites. And that would basically help in what? They giving the side of the government rather than siding with the Naxals. So this was another approach. Third was that in case then also the Naxalites do not give up arms, and then what is going to be there? It is going to be gun and gun, where then the government has to fight, and then again, if both the sides are fighting, then the possibility, because the government has the resources, the others do not, the Naxals, obviously it will lead to the killing of them. So this is the approach that basically followed. Under this, there have been various schemes and all that we'll be seeing. See here, multi-layered strategy that I've already discussed you, Samadhan. Now, Samadhan is a comprehensive strategy encompassing security, development, dialogue, and aims to counter Naxalism. Firstly, when you see Samadhan, full form, see, SAMADHAN, Samadhan. S means smart leadership. A means aggressive strategy. M, motivation and training. A, actionable intelligence. D, dashboard based on the key performance indicators. That means what is being targeted is being achieved. Harness technology. A, action plan for each theater. N, no access to financing. So these are the things that were basically being followed so that you counter the Naxalite movement. Over here, see, what were done? Enhanced security measures, strengthening intelligence and state coordination. For example, Operation Prahar by Chhattisgarh Police showed effective implementation of these measures. Socio-economic development, addressing the regional disparity that is basically leading to a rise in the Naxalism. So you develop the region. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana has played a very instrumental role in the connectivity and boosting the development of the region. Engagement and dialogue, this can help bring Naxalite into the mainstream society. Surrender and rehabilitation policy, this which discussed. Next is strategic counter narrative. That means counter narrative challenging the Naxalism is vital. How? The Vikas Sangharsh Samiti in Maharashtra uses this methodology so that the people over there understand that Naxalisms are not for you. It is a democratic framework that they're going to destroy. So that means a counter narrative has to be there. Rehabilitation programs. So all those under like Project Salam in Maharashtra, where those who have given up the arms, proper rehabilitation should be there. So this is basically following this all approach. And these are the examples which we see. Samadhan. Along with it, see, government's further efforts to counter Naxalism, like Operation Green Hunt, started in 2010. This aimed to minimize the loss of human life by providing massive deployment of security forces in the effective region over here. With these security forces being there, then counter-insurgency operations are going to take place. Next, Aspirational District Program 2018 launched, which was rapidly aimed at development of the tribal or the affected regions by Naxalism, so that regional development takes place and the people do not go or side with the Naxals. This is the basic aspect of the Naxalism and how to resolve that problem. Okay, let's move ahead. Mains questions of the day. 2 questions briefly highlight the digital code of ethics. 15 markers can be asked in GS paper 2 and GS paper 4 also. Next is, what is Naxalism? What has the government done to counter it? 15 marker. This again becomes important from your aspect of GS 3, GS 2 also. It can be asked in both the papers. Okay, let's move ahead. Prelims topics. Topic 3, United Nations to conduct deal for Saudi failed to produce pact. Over here, a word is mentioned, United Nations Convention to combat desertification. Now let us see what it is. See, this is important because it can come in your preliminary examination, as various provisions can be picked up from here. United Nations Convention to combat desertification, UNCCD. It is the only legal binding framework to address desertification and the effects of drought. So legally binding means, that means whatever is outcome of those various conference of parties under this convention will be binding on all the members. It is not something that you want to follow, you don't want to follow, don't follow. It is not that. It is binding. It is a multilateral commitment to mitigate the impact of land degradation and protect our land so that we can provide food, water, shelter, and economic opportunity to all people. So it is a convention basically aiming at resolving the problem of land degradation, and which is basically resulting into droughts also, and global cooperation is there. That is why we say it is a convention to the global combat desertification, and it is binding. Very important, it is binding. Now see, it is one of the 3 conventions from the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, established in 1994, members 197 parties, 196 countries in the European Union. India became a signatory in 94 and ratified in 1996. That means signing it is one thing. Ratifying that we'll implement it is in 1996 it was done. Secretariat, it is in Bonn, Germany. Principle, the convention is based on the principle of participation, partnership, and decentralization. Area of focus, the convention addresses the arid, semi-arid, dry, subhumid ecosystems. These are known as drylands. Next, convention of parties, that is COP, held every 2 years to the convention. Yeah, remember, like we had UNCCD. Over there, the conference of parties under that convention is held annually. Over here, it is held every 2 years. So I told you earlier also, whether it is convention for biological diversity, as he said over here, 3 conventions. Conventions for biological diversity, or UNFCCC, another convention with respect to climate change, and over here, United Nations Convention to combat desertification also is there. So you realize that under these conventions, various meetings are held depending upon annually or once in 2 years. Those are known as conference of parties under these conventions. So over here, the convention that is taking place held every 2 years, right? Now see, financial mechanism, global mechanism established in 1994 under Article 21 of the convention facilitates the mobilization of financial resources for desertification, land degradation, and drought. Now, UNCCD 2018 to 2030 strategic framework, global commitment to achieve land neutrality. The land degradation neutrality is a very important word. See here. The United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification from 2018 to 2030, this can be asked in your papers also. It is aiming to achieve land degradation neutrality. Before we go into the aim, what is it? Please understand. Land degradation neutrality is a state where land resources needed for the ecosystem and food security remain stable or improve over the time. Understood? That means the land resources that is needed for the ecosystem to be stable should remain at least stable, or it should improve. It should not degrade. That is what is land degradation neutrality. A key part of the strategy is to restore 1 billion hectares of land by 2030 with the proper funding and action. Promisingly, 109 countries have set voluntary Indian targets. That means 109 countries have said that what are they going to do in order to achieve land degradation neutrality in their countries. Between 2016 and 2019, approximately 5 billion from bilateral and multilateral sources have been allocated to combat desertification and degradation, and also to counter the droughts. Now, what is the aim of land degradation neutrality? See here. Aims to restore the productivity of vast expanses of degraded land and improve the livelihood of more than 1.3 billion people and reduce the impact of drought on the vulnerable sections in particular. This becomes very, very important for your prelims, also can be asked in your mains. Now see, the question that was asked, the thing is, the UN talks on drought deal in Saudi Arabia failed. The reason behind it is, a 16th conference of parties is basically took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia from 2nd to 13th of December. It coincides with the conventions with the 13th anniversary. Now please understand, over here certain mechanisms had to be discussed, that how should we go forward. So right now we realize that under this UNCCD, there was no outcome or proper outcome that came up over here. That is why itself the deal failed. Let us see, as the future articles also come, what has to be done or how they're going to decide. We will be updating you regarding that. Okay. So this is also one more thing. That is the first time that UNCCD COP basically is held in the Middle East and the North African region, because these are the regions which are most or the worst affected by the drought situations. Okay, now one more thing with respect to India. This is an article that basically shows the condition of India, which was discussed in the UNCCD. India's total geographical area is 3287.7 million hectares, or so 32,87,263 kilometers square in simple words. Land under degradation is 96.4 million hectares. That means 29.3% of the India's total geographical area is land degraded condition. Drivers of soil degradation, deforestation, population growth, urban expansion, pollution, climate change, unsustainable soil management. These are the things. Types of soil degradation, loss of organic carbon, erosion is taking place, acidification is taking place, pollution, nutrients imbalance, salinization, that means a lot of salt is there in the soil, and biodiversity loss. Consequences, it was going to impact the food security, nutrition, water scarcity, because it is a delicate balance between the water and the soil. Rapid climate change lead to poverty because productivity and production of the land will decrease. Migration, people will move from one region to another, and reduction in overall with respect to balance, or you can say income level, or you can say people to people contact. All these things basically will come up. Over here, you can see the dimension with respect to global level. At global level, 40% of the planet's land is degraded. If you see from that perspective, India's average is less, but overall, realize this will increase with time because the population is increasing at a very fast rate. 2011, it was 17.6%. Though it might be, with the new census coming up, we'll get the new data, but we realize that it is going at a very fast pace. So that will create a lot of issues in the future also. So this is with respect to India, with it was basically discussed. Let's move ahead. Switzerland and mixing the MFN status, most favored nation. What it means, please understand. Most favored nation is a very concept that has been in news very often. Why? See, the most favored nation clause ensures that the trade between countries is non-discriminatory. That means when the trade is taking place between countries, there should be no discrimination there. So what happens? It mandates that the country must offer the same trade terms to all its trading partners. That means that if one country is favoring or giving some favorable treatment to one country, it should give to other countries also. This is known as the most favored nation concept, because this will prevent what? Trade discrimination that is taking place. Now, please understand. WTO rules. Under the WTO regulation, member countries cannot discriminate among the trade partners. Any special benefit they are granted to one trade partner, they must extend to all WTO partners. So this is what is being mentioned over here. Certain exemptions have been there. Please remember, while the MFN clause is a fundamental principle to WTO, there are certain exemptions that we have seen, like trade blocs like UMCA and the European Union, which are allowed to discriminate against the import from the outside. Trade barriers in response to unfair competition, trade preference extended to developing countries, trade in services on limited basis. So like United States denies MFN status to Cuba and North Korea. So we realize this. Though the MFN status is a core idea of the trade that takes place via the World Trade Organization, which being a regulatory body, it wants a trade to be non-discriminatory. That means that we should not give favorable treatment to one group or let us say one country. Over here, trade should be free, streamlined, and non-discriminatory. But what actually happens is that a lot of countries or blocs basically indulge in this discriminatory practices. That is why we see as an example over here. So it is also dependent upon how powerful a country is, how powerful a group is, and how to or what extent they can exert their influence on the other countries. So if you see with respect to the MFN status, the concept is clear. That means if you should be aiming at a non-discriminatory trade as system where one, let us say special treatment given to one country or trading partner, you should give the similar treatment to all the other WTO partners also if you're a member of the WTO. Now, what is the pros? Access to larger market, reduce export cost, increase competitiveness, but it has the problems also. Give all members the same benefit. You might not be at good terms with the other members, so you will have to give them benefit. That is a problem. Easy to end a victim of shady trade practices. You can become a victim of this because though being, let us say we give special MFN status to some country, or let us say because of which it is a WTO member, we'll have to give to others also. And the other country might be indulging in, let us say, anti-national practices. What will happen that we will be giving them special status also, and that will lead to problems that our country will face. Next is developing countries still face high tariffs on the selected goods. This problem just remain. So that is why we say that though this concept appears to be good, but there are a lot of problems. Please see. Impact of removal of FMN status in the India-Switzerland double taxation avoidance agreement. Please see. What is going on is that Switzerland has basically removed India from the MFN status. Before that, we should understand what is double taxation avoidance agreement. See. Double taxation avoidance agreement, before we study the impact, let us understand this, helps in avoiding the tax being paid twice on the same income. This is done either, let us say if I am earning, let us say some, income in Switzerland, but I mean being an Indian citizen, I should not be paying in taxes in their country also and here also. So in order to avoid the double problem that is imposed on an individual, a double taxation avoidance agreement are signed between countries. Now what happens? This is this mechanism basically is done through things. One is exemption method, where income is taxed only in one country and is exempted in the other country. That means only one country will tax, other will not tax, so that the person doesn't suffer. Second is tax credit method, where both the countries will tax, but reimbursement from the other country would be done so that you do not basically suffer. Again, the same phenomena will be there, that you are taxed one because you're paying both, but your reimbursement is done from the one country. So again, both the means are there. That means a person or a group should not suffer because he's earning income in one country and paying taxes in two countries. That should not happen. For that, the double taxation avoidance agreements are basically signed between the countries. Now see here. Now what has happened is, what is going on is that, we have been removed. So what will happen? It will increase the tax burden on the Indian entities in Switzerland. Those who are in basically Switzerland, they will be suffering from the tax burden. The removal of MFN status may lead to higher taxation burden on the income on the Indian companies over there. Potential renegotiation of DTA. Suspension of MFN clause prompted discussion on renegotiating the double taxation avoidance agreement between India and Switzerland. The regeneration will likely address the challenges which are currently being raised by Switzerland. Impact on the bilateral trade relations will be impacted over because MFN basically helps in further proper access to each other's market also. So what happens is this will lead to stigmatization of the bilateral trade also. Next is alignment with the EFTA. Okay, now see, negotiation of double TTA is expected to align India's tax framework for the broader aspect of European Free Trade Association trade deal, includes Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. So what happened is that this will have a positive impact also in a way that when we are renegotiating, we will be aligning with the European Free Trade Association also. That can have a beneficial impact because we are already negotiating with the European Union. Implications for the free trade agreement. Please see, MFN suspension highlights the need to resolve tax-related issues before India EFTA trade agreements basically come. So what we need to realize is that these small issues that arises because of various disputes that arise should be resolved so that when India is basically aiming at signing a free trade agreement with the European Union, these things do not arise repeatedly. So there are certain positives, certain negatives also that we see, which we'll be highlighting further also. Legal and judicial precedents. Switzerland cited the 2023 Indian Supreme Court ruling related to Nestle as a basis for suspending the MFN clause. This suggests that India to address the legal interpretations also, so that whatever judgments are given by the Supreme Court or the court's higher judiciary, that might lead to or affect the bilateral agreements also. So when a judgment is given, it is important for the other countries to first talk to the domestic, or let us say the government of India, before taking any decision, because interpretation of the judicial proceedings can be very subjective in nature. Next is broader economic impact. The removal of FN status may lead to reassessment of India's treaties with the other countries also. So that might create a lot of ripple effect. So let's move ahead. HRW, Human Rights Watch. Now what is HRW? See, the Human Rights Watch is an international non-government organization founded in 1978 as Helsinki Watch. It was the initial name, Helsinki Watch. It is initially aimed at investigating right abuses in countries signed the Helsinki Accords. So those who had signed the accord, over there any human rights issues used to arise, that was being investigated. Now currently its ambit is expanded to 100 countries worldwide. Headquarters is in the New York City. So one should understand it is an international NGO. What is Helsinki Accord? 1975 Helsinki Accord was a major diplomatic agreement signed in Helsinki, Finland, as a conclusion of the first Conference of Security and Cooperation in Europe. Now this is known as Organization for Security Cooperation in Europe. So primarily an effort to reduce tension between the Soviet and the Western blocs. They were signed by all countries of Europe, US and Canada. So this agreement made 35 signatory nations pledge to human rights and the fundamental freedoms. So this is basically an accord signed by the various countries like United States, Then you have the Europe and the Canada. They basically fought with an agreement that they need to resolve the issues of human rights that are present or prevailing in their countries. And over here, this Helsinki Accord formed the basis for that. So this is basically, we have seen what was Human Rights Watch and what is the Helsinki Accord. Now let's move ahead. Green hydrogen or financing issues. So what is green hydrogen? Please understand. Green hydrogen refers to the hydrogen that is produced with zero carbon emissions using renewable energy to split water into hydrogen and oxygen to a process known as electrolysis. It offers sustainable solution for industries as a means for power generation, for industrialization also, and along with it, meeting the targets of sustainable development. So what we are seeing is that hydrogen being produced without any carbon emission is known as green hydrogen. Now, it can be produced through various means. Electrolysis is just one method. So let us see how green hydrogen can be produced. See, there are three aspects over here. Electrolyzers, device that split the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. Then you have the non-renewable resources. Solar, wind, hydropower provide necessary electricity for electrolysis. And water resources, sufficient water supply is required. 1 ton of hydrogen production for 9 tons or approximately needs 9 tons of water. Now see, this is how the hydrogen basically is produced. Over here, we need to see that electrolyzers will split the hydrogen and the oxygen over here. Then renewable energy resources, that means what is being used for producing, or let us say while the electrolysis process is going on, should also be from green energy, let us say renewable, green and hydropower. And the water, that was sufficient water, that means close to 9 ton of water for in approximately 1 ton of hydrogen is required. So this is how the green hydrogen is basically produced. Uses industrial sector, used in steel manufacturing, chemical production, transportation, power fuel cells, electricity generation, residential heating. These can be very well useful for that. Advantages: zero carbon emission, energy storage, stores the renewable energy, ensuring a consistent energy supply. Versatile applications, can be used for transportation, power generation, and other means. Reduces dependence on the fossil fuel because there is a limit. Along with it, they produce a lot of pollution also. What are the disadvantages? Right now, we have a very high production cost. The electrolysis process basically is very expensive right now, and the scale of production is very low. So we realize that high production cost is a major problem. Water demand, because we saw that 1 ton of hydrogen can be generated through 9 tons of water. Now, that is again a very problematic issue. Storage and transport challenge. Hydrogen is highly flammable, so transport of it becomes very difficult. Even in today's, if we see in India, we realize it is a tropical country. Having hydrogen cars will also require the containers in which hydrogen is stored should be such that any leakage should not be there. Along with it, the temperatures being rise in this country should not further stigmatize the car or any application of green hydrogen in the countries also. So that becomes very, very important here. Limited efficiency is also a major problem over here. So India has a green hydrogen mission over here in order to produce more hydrogen through, let us say, green practices. We realize there the aim is to reduce carbon footprint, enhancing energy security, promoting investment and the job creation. That is why India has launched the green hydrogen mission, so that we realize that hydrogen is also future in India. So we need to produce more green hydrogen in the country. Next, topic 7, ad valorem tax. That was mentioned in one of the articles today. What is ad valorem tax? Any tax imposed on the basis of the monetary value. Anything that has a monetary value, you calculate the monetary value, and based on that you impose a tax, is known as ad valorem tax. So based on the monetary value, you tax an item. Literally, the term is according to the value. So that means like any property. A property has a value. Now based on that value, tax it. That is known as ad valorem tax. So ad valorem tax is based on the assessed value of the item, such as real estate or a personal property. The most common ad valorem tax are property taxes levied on the real estate, typically imposed on the item of transaction. So anything that has a value on which the tax is being imposed based on the assessed value, that what it is, that tax is known as ad valorem tax. Okay, let's move ahead. Multiple choice questions. Question number 1. Question 1, options, solution. Question 2, options, solution. Question 3, options, solution. Question 4, options, solution. Question 5, Options. Solution. This was the analysis of the Hindus from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it and enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned a lot of things. This is important for your civil services examination. Take care. And as we always say, Jai Hind.